Welcome, everyone, to Elevate with V. So excited to be here with everyone. And as most of you know, this podcast was inspired by my own healing journey and as a way to express gratitude for all those people that have helped me. But today we are doing something a little different. I wasn't going to do an episode during the holidays. I was just going to take a break and say everyone's busy. I'll just do ask people to listen to replays. And then something made me think that, the holidays can be kind of a challenging time for a lot of us, including myself. And so I'm really excited that I have a beautiful friend who's going to be joining me today, Jessica Rose. And so we are going to both just have a conversation and chat about the holidays and see what it brings up for each one of us. And, one of the other reasons I initially was like, okay, I'll do an episode, we'll see, maybe. And then for those of us that are in the US, because I know that I'm very grateful. I now see that I have people listening in from like 23 different countries, which is like so amazing. So thank you everyone for tuning in from every place that you're tuning in from. But Twitch, if you don't know who he is, I mean, definitely a celebrity in the US. And he was, I hate to use the word sidekick, but he was for the Ellen show. And just a beautiful soul, such positive energy, beautiful wife and kids. And, when you see his videos or his TikToks, he's always dancing. Like he and his wife were always dancing, and especially during the pandemic, spreading joy and just dancing. And then their kids who are tiny, but they were kind of growing up through these videos dancing. And I would just always feel the joy of like looking at them. And he recently took his own life, and it was just very shocking. He's just 40 years old. He just celebrated his ninth wedding anniversary. Christmas is like his most favorite time of the year. And his wife was like, it was never a big deal until he was like, oh, no, we've got to celebrate Christmas. Like, we got to do it big. And, so he made it kind of such a big thing. And, this is the time that he chose to, sort of exit. And it was definitely very shocking. And I know for most people, they're like, are you kidding me? How could someone like that possibly do something like that? They have everything you could imagine, everything that anyone could ever desire or want. Yet that also reflects back to us that we never really know the true story of what's happening, what's going on inside someone's mind. And it's so easy for people to judge and say, oh my God, really? Someone like that who has everything, they have all these resources. Like, why would they do that? But, part of the conversation today is also about mental illness. We each don't know enough about that, and we all have our individual experiences, and we could never ever say that we know what it's like or what it was like to be in his shoes. And so I want to honor him and his life, and obviously his family, they're going through so much right now. I can't even imagine, especially during the holidays. So it's really a combination of that and a little bit of my own personal experience of what it's like during the holidays, why I wanted to do this and to bring in Jessica because, she's going through her own experience. And, I will ask her to share a little bit as well. Like, she lost her sister about a year ago, and I can't even imagine like, what that journey is like. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So I know I've said a lot, and Jessica is just a beautiful, beautiful soul sister that I met through my dear, dear, dear Michael, who, for those of you who might be tuning in for the first time, he was my premiere episode for my podcast. So if you get a chance, please check that out and you'll get to connect with him and his beautiful energy. And we both are part of his queerant community, and that is how we connected. And not only that, and keeping in touch and just I just knew that we both had a bond and something special, and we've kept it up through all of this time. And I had the beautiful opportunity to actually meet Jessica in person recently when I came to Arizona on a little trip. So that was such a big highlight, and I'm so grateful and honored to call her a friend. And I'm so grateful that you're joining me today, Jessica.
Thank you, Miss Benita. I am honored to be here. So excited.
Love it, love it. And, we both were just chatting a little bit beforehand that, we also don't want this podcast episode to be like super heavy, but we also want it to be honest and we want it to be authentic. And so to really share from our personal experiences, neither one of us is a health professional. We do not have any kind of advice that we would be giving about any of these things. All we can do is share our personal stories. And of course, we both are pretty deep into our own healing and spiritual journeys. So we do have a lot of tools in the toolbox. So I know that those are some things that we can offer as things that we have practiced ourselves. So we will definitely be doing that as well. But I wanted to ask you, Jessica, like I know obviously you heard the news about Twitch, like, what came up for you? What were you thinking when you heard about the story?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, of course, initially it's just devastating, just unimaginable. And there's so much relatability there just from, I mean, I think it's becoming more and more of a popular conversation about the importance of mental health. Um, and oh, he was such a light and a joy and a delight and was just bringing so much to everyone that he encountered, whether it's via technology or, in person. And it's just a I had the same reaction with Robin Williams. Here's this joyful being, and Twitch maybe even more so.
Mhm.
And just, I don't know, it's like I feel like there's just such a stigma around mental health. And so, but I understand it's like because of the stigma and all sorts of other reasons, there is you feel the need to protect other people around you and kind of mask, so what you're putting onto the world and trying to put out is almost in a way of like compensating. And I'm not saying this is what Twitch was doing, but from my own experience and kind of struggling, a similar battle, is we just do a lot to protect others. And it's like happiness and joy is contagious and everybody wants more of it. Not everybody, or it feels like anyway, not everybody can hold the pain, can or hold the space, the sacred space for you to have that pain. Or I mean, we never really know, we don't know what's going on with somebody else. So um gosh, I feel it with all of me, and I just obviously we can't change it. Um, but yeah, it was a big mirror for me, I think, in a lot of ways.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, actually, I would love if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about what you're just saying about it was a mirror for you, because I think that would be really, um, useful and helpful to a lot of people who are tuning in to listen.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I went to SWIHA, Southwest Institute of Healing Arts, and that was like my first introduction to um, really being around sensitives, similar to myself and people that picked up on the more subtle energies of people. And it was interesting. My experience there is especially, a couple different instructors, they were just like, what's going on with you? And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I'm smiling. I'm like, I don't complain. I'm, making jokes or whatever. Like, what are they seeing? And to a point, like I knew deep down what they were seeing, but I was just like, how are they figuring this out, like what's going on. And yeah, I quite literally would hide my pain with a smile. And I'm very, I have a lot of depth to me. And just like what I was saying with Twitch is like I have not always been in a safe space to share the depth. It's like you're too sensitive, you're too much, lighten up, life's not so serious. And so it's just like in a way I felt invalidated and not comfortable to really process and share my experience or how I was feeling, other than with maybe like a professional, because I have, done the traditional therapeutic route, which I, have nothing but positive things to say about. But yeah, just the importance. And now I like to say it's like I have a much more difficult time. I call it faking the funk. I can't really fake the funk anymore. Authenticity is so important to me. And I want to do it. I want to share my experiences and my feelings in as balanced a way as possible, not to minimize it or anything, but you know what I mean? Like also respecting other people and where they're at. And I mean, that could be a whole other conversation. It's just, is somebody able to receive it? Because you want to honor the other person. It's not just about you and your experience and, hold me and hold me now kind of thing. But really, it's a dance, as with everything in life. And yeah, and it's something near and dear to my heart, as far as wanting to share the joy and the light and being a generous, kind individual, and not wanting to bring other people down with my sadness and my sorrow. And that can kind of lead to self-isolation. And whether that means you're actually physically isolating from people, or you're isolating parts or fragments of yourself and only allow, chills, um, or only allowing people to see what you want them to see. And I don't, so I think I just overall, I just think Twitch's story was such a powerful, heart-wrenching reminder of how important it is to reach out, and if you're lucky enough to have the support system around you and somebody that is able to hold that, fantastic, or to a professional hotline, just something to help know. Because in my deepest belief, I don't believe anybody really wants to die. I think they want the pain to die. And so anyway, so sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but yeah, yeah. So that's what I mean by mirror. Like I understand having traumas, as most of us do, or we all do. I think that's safe to say. And a depth of sadness that is sometimes difficult to articulate, or you don't feel comfortable or safe sharing, and hiding that with a big old smile. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. It's there's so many things that you said in there. And I think one of the things that I just love, I'm going to have to like steal that, is don't fake the funk. Do not fake the funk, because it's such a real thing. And, you know, there are a few different things that you said that, especially for people who are sensitives. And I know I'm one of those too. And I didn't recognize this. I thought everybody was sort of that way until I went through my journey. And one of the things I learned is that when you are that sensitive and it's not supported by the outside world, whether that's your family and your friends, I mean, it absolutely creates so much separation, isolation, because you're like, I can't really express myself to people. Like nobody really gets me. Or if I say something, they're like, "Oh my God, you're just so sensitive." Or Oh my, and you're just made to feel bad for who you are. And so I know for me, it's almost like I had to go the opposite direction of building the shell around me so that there's this very strong exterior, because I had to do that in
Yeah.
order to show up in the world and feel protected by myself. Right. And it's
Yeah.
almost like the opposite of, like, I'm so sensitive that in order to protect myself, I got to kind of create this armor around me so that when people see me, they're like, wow, she is really strong. She's so independent. Like, she definitely does not need any support. When in truth, I like could really use the support, but it didn't quite match, right? Because I had to create this mechanism for myself because I just couldn't get the support, and people just didn't understand. And it took this journey for me to slowly break that armor down and say, that's not really who you are. You did that because you couldn't get the support that you needed, and you felt that people would mock you or shun you because you are so sensitive. And so, I think that's a really important thing also for people to tap into and say, wow, I am a very sensitive person. Are there people around me that understand that? Are they able to support that? I mean, I will say there's so much more support available now. Like you said, Jessica, even for you, you're like, you took the initiative. You're like, listen, I need some external help. I'm going to
Mhm.
go to a counselor. I'm going to go to a therapist, whoever you went to, right? I mean, you're like seeking something. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about is just kind of taking some time to just stop and really feel into what's going on for you, and to know that it is challenging. Sometimes you might not have the support system, that your ideal support system. So it's like, okay, what am I going to do? What are my options? And what little I understand of the few people. And, I realize I want to be very careful and mindful. Do we have a little furry friend joining? Yeah.
Oh, we have a couple, one up there, and then I don't know if you can see he's all black, so or mostly black. He's got a little white patch on his tummy. But yeah, they're hanging
Oh,
out in the back. In the darkness. Here we
I
are.
love it. Hey, listen, I was telling Jessica, because one of the things that she does is she loves to be taking care of all kinds of fur babies. And so she was like, oh my goodness, I'm worried there's going to be sound, there's going to be interruption. I'm like, bring them in. They're such incredible, incredible animals that bring so much profound energy. And I'm like, bring them into this beautiful holiday edition. They will add their own magic into this, and healing, of course. Um, and so, kind of coming back to this place of, I want to be very mindful that, yes, we are talking about celebrities, and the only reason is because it just happened. There's hundreds, thousands of people who are just people like you and me who are going through all kinds of things. But the reason we're bringing it up is because it was out in the limelight, like everybody got to see this. And so it's easier because there's an easier connection that way. And to also say, in my limited information of people who have taken their life, be it like, a celebrity or somebody else that it's so easy for us to judge or have like 20, 30 different types of questions. And, to just understand that for them to take that decision, for them in their mind, it was the only option.
Yeah.
There was no other option. I love something that you said, Jessica, is to separate. Like, nobody really wants to take their life. They just want the pain to end. And they don't know how to stop the pain. And so this could be that next step that they take. And, it's really sad, but it's also one of those things where we don't know what his circumstance was, right? I mean, here you would say he's supported by like so many amazing people, his wife, his kids, yet he found himself in a place where he wasn't able to express or say or share. And this is what his choice was,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but I'm just like, wow, just the thought that here we're looking and chatting and saying, we can do different things. Like you chose to go to someone, or I could say, when I'm in that place where I'm feeling, blue. Now, let's all be honest, we all have our vices, okay? So for me, even though it's winter time, if I'm in that place where I'm just feeling this sadness and I don't know what to do with it, it's almost like a coping mechanism where you're like, I don't want to deal with this. So what can I have? For someone that could be like, you know what? I'm going to drink a couple of beers. For someone that could be like, I think I'd like to get a pint of my favorite ice cream and I'm going to eat the whole thing because that's going to make me feel better right now. Or I'm going to eat the whole box of cookies because that's just going to make me feel better right now. And when I'm sharing this, there's nothing wrong in doing whatever you're going to do, right? But I think the reason we're having this chat is just to recognize that there's some pain, there's something that's coming up that we don't want to deal with. So
Mhm.
these are our coping mechanisms, right? To deal with them. And so, in saying that, I kind of wanted to come back to you, Jessica, if there's anything in what I shared that you wanted to kind of dive further into. Otherwise, I kind of wanted to also talk about, you lost your sister a year ago. And I can't even imagine, the pain and sadness and all the other emotions that come up with that. I mean, a year is not that long ago. And then, especially when the holidays roll up, to not have that presence, I really can't. So, I'm going to really ask if you're willing to share about any part of that experience, so that our audience can benefit, because, we're all experiencing all different kinds of things. And this would probably resonate for a lot of our listeners today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you said everything beautifully, and so I'm happy to step into talking a little bit about my sister. Her name's Melissa. I call her Lissa. She also went by Mel. She's a woman of a thousand names. And talk about being the joy and the light. And that was the other thing that Twitch actually really reminded me of my sister. She was social butterfly, never met a stranger, just an all around beautiful human being. So last September, she was killed by a drunk driver. And let me just interject here real quick and
Mhm.
say, and I've reached this place, and I think I had, when it happened, I had been to a point in my awakening and healing journey and that sort of thing that I was able to kind of see it's, I don't know what happened. I didn't really go through the anger, like being angry with this. It was a kid, it was a 20-year-old kid, and he lost his life too, unfortunately. But just, drugs and alcohol. And he had been strung out for, because I can't remember the name of the fluid, but the fluid in the eye, once that starts to read drugs and alcohol, it's been in your system for a really long time, like we're talking days to weeks versus just, hey, went out and got drunk one night and, but what's interesting is and I don't know, I will never know, but intuitively, um, I mean, first of all, what kind of pain do you have to be in to go to that extent of numbing? Talk about distractions and coping mechanisms, right? And so I have compassion and feel for him just the same. And then there's just that little, like, just an inkling of like, I wonder if he didn't intentionally take his own life, and that was just the method that he chose to do it in. So yeah, my sister, it's there was a 5-year gap between us, and she's actually a twin. She has a twin brother, my brother Kevin. And, um, growing up was like I felt like another mother figure to her. She was, and my mom will tell you, like, oh, that was Jessica's baby. These are Jessica's babies. I was so excited. I'm like, and there's two of them. So of course my mom, could have used the help anyway, and I did. And I did it joyfully. Just absolutely loved them to bits. So it's such an interesting dynamic to have somebody that you feel like she was just so much more than my sister, you know? Definitely soulmate, definitely. And we were so different in so many ways, but just love her to bits. Well, she was mother of four, and my niece and nephews, and they are the light of my life. Um, and they lived with me for some time. My sister started her family very young, and as I shared, I'm 5 years older, so she moved in with me and my then husband. And anyway, um, all that to just share, it's like we're just a super special connection and bond, and even aside from being my sister. And so anyway, losing her, I mean, you talk about coping mechanisms, and I still definitely do it. And I think those play an important role. There are sometimes it's kind of like if you've ever experienced something traumatic, and you don't remember it, you don't remember the details. Your brain is like protecting itself. It's shutting down. And I feel like coping mechanisms, although they can definitely be taken to the extreme and become unhealthy, I think in any given moment they can also play a vital role in our healing ultimately, because it's like, whoa, this is a lot for now, for this moment right now. What's going to honor me is having some cookies or some ice cream. Excuse me. So and I'm definitely an emotional eater already, but so they actually live in Colorado Springs, and they moved there when, goodness, I mean, they've lived there for over 10 years now. So so we had actually, and this is something that's going to be very odd to say, but I feel like I am in some ways, I was devastated when they moved away, so like not only my sister but my babies. um but in some way I feel like that was kind of a gift, because she didn't we didn't get to see each other every single holiday. That wasn't a standard thing. We'd try, and Thanksgiving was more our normal holiday. If she was going to come out, that would be the time, because when you've got four kids plus she had two step kids, um you know that's a lot of presents to travel with and stuff.
Yes.
But gosh, it's just a whole different, it just colors the holidays differently. And I think sometimes one of my coping mechanisms is kind of well, there's some disassociation, but almost a little bit of delusion. There are times where I feel like I just imagine that she's still living an amazing and beautiful life in Colorado Springs, and it's just been a while since we've talked, you know? And that might sound really unhealthy to some people, and maybe it is, but that's definitely one of the things that, because I do believe in the eternal, our eternal soul. And so I think on some level, it's 100% correct. It's just not the way, that we are here and embodied now. But um, gosh, it just took the wind out of my sails. I still remember so vividly. Um, I live with my mom, and you just helping care for her and that sort of thing. And um, I don't know, just the whole. that whole morning. It was so weird because the night that she passed, her accident was just after midnight. So it was technically, she had just finished work the night of the 16th, and she passed technically on the 17th. And I was in a horrible mood. Oh my gosh, I was in the worst mood the night of the 16th. I mean, I was so cranky, I didn't know what my problem was. And now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I felt it, on some level. And I retreated into my room and I just started like processing all the stuff. I'm like, what is going on? I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm so rude to my mom. And then, I just allowed myself not too long ago to watch that video. And I'm just like, wow, I don't know. There's just so many interesting synchronicities and stuff, but that's the kind of thing that I hold on to is just, I don't know, just the synchronicities of life, and like all the dots are connected somehow, and I have to believe that there is, a bigger and greater plan, and I'm just now starting to, I feel like, come back to life because I really felt like I died that day also, you know. And then, she's got these babies, and they're not babies anymore. Her youngest is 4. He'll be 5 actually in 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it goes way too fast. But yeah, and so there's the whole, like, so it's not only, my grief and pain and loss, but these 4 gorgeous souls that are just devastated and have lost their mama, and trying to be like a sacred container for their pain and their grief. And that's, something that I shared with my niece, because she was definitely just very angry, and rightfully so, with the kid that uh caused the accident. And something that I told her, we were, we're all in Colorado, preparing for my sister's services and stuff. And I just told her, it's like, baby, you have every right to feel all of the feelings, and please allow yourself to feel them, because that's the other danger, is like stuffing and hiding and building the walls and all of that. Um, I was like, but if you hear me say nothing else, just try not to live there. Try not to stay there. Try to feel it, embody it, move through it, and, have hope of reaching the other side. Because, they actually say any emotion or emotional wave, and I don't know how this relates to grief, because I'm like, I don't know if this is true, but maybe it is. But like 60 to 90 seconds is, you have this emotion, it washes over you and it stays between 60 90 seconds, and then it goes. And how things get trapped in our being or our bodies is resistance, not allowing ourselves to feel the things that we need to feel. So yeah, I'm sorry, that was like all over the place, but yeah, I don't know. So I feel like there's so much around the holidays that it's like, on one hand, nothing has changed because we didn't always get to see each other. And on the other hand, there's still that grieving of, I could have, maybe I could have flown out this year and enjoyed a white Christmas in Colorado Springs with my sister and her kids. And um, yeah, and so it's like, in a way, grieving the dream too, if that makes any sense at all. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
No, you did. You actually, you shared beautifully, and I'm so glad that you actually did share, the story of like what happened and the family and the kids. I mean, that's all important, right? Because this is such an important piece to remember is like, there's so many things attached to one human being, right? Like, that one incident, the impact that it has is profound. There's like so many lives that are in some sense, not left behind, but you know what I mean, right? It's sort of like that's kind of how it feels. And I just can't even imagine being in your shoes and how you've had to navigate not only your own personal journey of dealing with that, but it's like, you're there with your mom and you've got these beautiful kids and you're a very sensitive person, so it's sort of like juggling all of that, right? It's not an easy task at all. And I will say one of the things these days, thank goodness that, so much of that stigma about reaching out for help, if that's a professional, right? If you don't have anybody that you can connect with, so many of those things thankfully are now like it's so okay, like almost like everybody is like, hey, it's almost kind of hip these days to be like, hey, I have a therapist or I have a counselor. I was like, oh, wow. Like you would never hear people even 10 years ago disclose that information. They would just keep it to themselves because there was sort of like, oh my gosh, I can't tell people. They're going to think like, I'm crazy or like something's wrong with me. Right.
Yeah.
And, the fact that that's happening. But what I did want to ask you though is, first of all, thank you for sharing because I know there's probably, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine how many people can relate to losing someone close to them, you know, of course, it does matter how it happens because, this was a very specific scenario, and not only was it your sister lost her life, but also the person that took her life also lost his life, and it's like, oh my goodness, like just the depth of that. And, I think it's very common in that situation to have a ton of anger and wanting to like do something or be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, but at the same time, for you to be able to have that grace and that insight to be able to share with your niece on like, hey, feel it, feel everything, but don't get stuck there. I think that's so profound. I think that's such an important piece that I think that doesn't get said enough about don't get stuck there, because what I've noticed with a lot of people is that stuckness. Like when their person, their people, whoever it is connected to them passes on from, whatever has happened to them, they literally get stuck in that moment and they're just not being able to move forward. And for people like you and me and others who are kind of more on their healing journey and have a little bit more awareness about some of these spiritual things that we talk about on this podcast, we know for, most of the cases, the people that have crossed over are actually looking back and saying, oh my goodness, I'm okay. I'm okay. Like you need to forgive yourself. You did everything you could. You did the best you could. You made the best decision. I'm not angry with you. I'm not mad at you. Like, this is when I had to go. This is when my journey here was done. I'm on the other side. I'm with the rest of the family. I'm with other people. And, I've got like my life here now. Of course, it's really difficult because for most of us, that's a very challenging concept to like wrap our head around, right? It's like, how could that happen? How could they leave me? Like, I need them here. I need them to be here with me. Um, so I think it definitely makes things even more challenging. But I think that's a lot of kind of what you're sharing too is like, don't get stuck in the moment because it can really, in some sense, almost kind of like it's like debilitating, right? It
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah. And so what I wanted to actually ask you is, it's been a year and you've shared kind of, obviously family and, how some of them are coping. Like, how have you managed to deal with the grief in this year? Like, what are some of the things that you've been able to do? And I know it's an ongoing process, obviously, but do you feel that you have been able to heal some of the wounds, or is it too early still, or?
Well, and it's funny that you say too early. I really don't. It's so interesting because I can kind of like split myself off sometimes, um, where it's like I can say I believe, you know, the truth with the capital T is like there is no timeline. You know, go through it's your journey, it's your process, it's your feelings. Go through whatever you need to go through, and yet I'm over here like, oh my gosh, you know, it's been almost a year, Jess. Shouldn't you like, you know, maybe step out of the house or, you know, like I feel like almost a sense of urgency to like hurry up and move through your process because you don't want people thinking you're stuck or, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, just a real quick note on the stuckness too, is I feel like, you know, like I said, I shared that with my niece and for her it might be anger, but you know, for me it is really easy for me to get stuck in sadness. Like that's just, and I think everybody kind of has that one emotion that's just like their go-to or they're like um I don't know. It's almost like a lazy boy recliner. Not that it's like a super comfortable emotion, but it's like that's just, you know, if you're triggered, sadness is my first, you know, whereas my brother, he's triggered, anger is his first, you know, but um sorry, I like went off on a tangent now. Like, wait a minute, what was it? So healing, yeah. So I mean the first, gosh, I mean, tears, and I do believe they're healing. Lots and lots and lots of tears, and definitely openness and sharing. Beautiful friends such as yourself and uh, Michael. You know, I was and am blessed to have a few individuals where I do feel like I can be safe and somebody is able to hold that sacred space. My family is maybe not so much that space for me. Of course, my niece and I have just the most amazing bond in the world. We always have. And so we share to a point, but there's still like that protection thing, like where we're protecting each other from our feelings, which is, you know, definitely a habit of mine, unfortunately. And I've gotten better, but still, like I protect people from my feelings, and I try to protect people from their own feelings. Um, but there's, you know, there's definitely been coping mechanisms, and then like I mentioned before, it's like anything that gets trapped in the body emotion wise is a resistance too. So really allowing myself this space to feel my feelings. I dabble in poetry writing, and so I'll sit, you know, I sit or do automatic writing and just, you know, write it out. Or as I shared the night she passed, I had been doing almost like a video diary where I'm just like, you know, like letting it all out there and just like asking, you know, higher power, source, universe, whatever you call it, angels, guides, like, help me out here. You know, what's the next thing, where like why am I stuck in this funk?
Yeah.
Because I was in a bit of a funk even before
Mhm.
losing Liz. And so yeah, just being able to process it, whether it's with close friends or writing or some sort of expression, art. I'll do a little bit of painting or that sort of thing. And I think that's critical, just like moving the energy, even moving your body. I started a walking habit, and that really does. I mean, it sounds so silly, and everybody's going to have their thing, you know, something that's more beneficial. But like, I feel like moving your body is kind of moving the energy. And I mean, I probably look like a crazy person on several of my walks because I will sometimes I'm just like I'm like kind of out loud processing emotions as I'm walking down the street, and they're like, and I'll wear my earbuds just because, like, you know, I don't look like a complete psycho. But just, yeah, just out loud processing while moving my body, breathing. And I'll say, on the really, really hard days, I'm very much a natural healer kind of girl. Um, don't really do the medications and that sort of thing, but I did use, it's called Star of Bethlehem. It's a natural flower essence, and it's, for just it's profound grief. And I would take that on my really, really, really hard days. And I feel like that's kind of, I don't know that that's more of a distraction or a coping thing. Or even numbing, but just almost like supporting the body and the spirit as it carries you through what you're going through, if that makes any sense at all.
Yes.
Um, versus, just popping an antidepressant and calling it a day. Because I had several people that would recommend that. And I'm like, this isn't depression though, and there are so many that need that. And I don't begrudge that at all. Um, but for me, it's just, I prefer to find other ways. And if I can help it, like I don't like to ingest anything really, because I do want to feel it, because I was a hider for so long, a masker. Um, so yeah, just body work, breath work, massage. I love a good bath, and it sounds all just foo-foo self-care stuff, but really has played a big role, in I tell myself it's like love yourself like Lissa loved you, you
Hmm.
know, because I used to say, like, if it's possible to love somebody too much, my sister loved me too much.
Oh, oh, that's so beautiful.
So
Yeah.
giving myself that gift. And also, she was just so full of life. And I feel like it's like I want to honor her and her life through exactly what she wants for me, which is living my best life and taking care of myself and healing and not getting stuck in the sadness and the grief, that inevitably follows losing somebody you love so much. So um, yeah, I think those were probably my primary ones. Funny movies. I love a good comedy. That helps. And that can be a little bit more, might be a little bit of a distraction, but if it lifts the vibration, if it lifts the mood, it elevates you a little bit, worth it.
I
Worth
love
it.
that.
And
So
sometimes you do just
beautiful.
need that break. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information because it completely weaved in everything that we were going to talk about anyways. Like, what are the things that, each one of us does? And I love that it's so specific because it's to do with your own personal healing journey in regards to, losing your sister and the things that you've been able to do. And, so much about what you're sharing is I think one of the beautiful things is just the self awareness, right? Like just being aware of what's happening and then making a choice, right? And I think the other thing that I really wanted to highlight, because I'm going to come back to some of the things that you shared about, things that you practice, because I do a lot of those things as well. And I think it's really important to be careful about not putting things in like good or bad, right? Because it's like, oh, well, this is good, but then this is bad. Or if I had ice cream, that's not so good. But if I did that instead, that would be better. And, it's so easy for us to fall into that trap because that's all we've learned from the external world, right? And I think it's about all of these things are okay as long as it's, of course, not becoming like this addictive behavior that's now impacting how you operate and you do things. But some of these things are also very like, to some degree, they're pleasurable, right? It's like, oh my God, I love eating like chocolate ice cream. Like it makes me happy, but it's that awareness of like, okay, but maybe I don't need to have a whole pint. I can have a bowl and a half, maybe, or you know what I mean? Um,
Absolutely.
so it's sort of like noticing, what choices you're making and that it's not about it's good, it's bad. It's just saying make a choice in the moment that feels right, and then just move on. The problem is we beat ourselves up. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I had 4 slices of pizza. Now I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. And it's like, that's where we get stuck. That's kind of that whole stuck thing that we were talking about, right? And it's to say, look, you made the choice. Did you enjoy it? Then it's okay. You enjoyed it. Now let's move on, you know? But I think coming back to what you were sharing is, I love some of the practices that you were sharing because for those of us that are kind of more aware of the different things that we have been trying to deal with on our healing journey, there's a lot that comes up. And I know for me and probably for you as well, a lot of it is very isolating. And you're completely by yourself because you realize that if you share some of these things, people just don't understand because they're not going through that journey. And, we're lucky that at some point during our journey that we have been able to find each other and be like, okay, I know someone else can totally understand. But a lot of my journey was very solo, and I had to learn by listening to others who were ahead of me in their journeys, who were like, hey, just start a little bit of meditation. And if you can't figure it out on your own, there's so many on YouTube. Just go through a few and see what style you like, And so the reason I'm bringing that up is to say, we don't know what each one of us is going through, and other people don't know. And especially during the holidays, it just brings up so many different things. I know for me personally, I'm here by myself, and ordinarily it doesn't really bother me because I'm sort of used to it. But this year, I definitely sensed some sadness come up. And I was like, I'm just going to allow it. And so there were a couple of days where just the sadness would pop up. And maybe this is part of what you were describing, which I've actually never heard about that 60-90 second rule. And I just, I just wanted to cry and I just let it out. And I was like, okay, I'm not even exactly sure what it is, but that's what's wanting to come out. So just let it come out. Like, I'm just going to cry, and just honor that. And it's almost like it's something that's wanting to come out or express itself. So just allow it to come out. And that was kind of one of the key reasons, again, that I wanted to do the podcast, because it's like, yes, of course I have options, but at the same time, I'm also someone who's like, oh, everyone's with their family. I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to disturb anybody. And, they're kind of doing their own thing. And yes, that is valid. That is, we should honor that. But I think it's also really important to honor yourself, and that if you feel that you're in a place where you could use some support, or you could use, even just somebody listening to you, or, you know, don't let your ego get in the way. Don't let your pride get in the way. It's really okay. Trust me and believe me, that other person is going to be delighted to hear from you, to be like, oh my God, I'm so glad you reached out. Because maybe they're hesitating because their perception is, well, I don't want to bother her, or, you know, she probably is fine. Like, we don't know. So I think a really important message also is, just check up on people, and also take the initiative to reach out. Like, don't be like, oh my God, I can't believe they never reached out to me. They know I'm here by myself. And don't go into all of that story mode, like, we don't need to do any of that victim stuff, because that's not helping anybody, right? It's really about, if you're feeling something, just to the best of your ability, take responsibility for yourself and just be in awareness, and know that any choice that you're making is your choice and you have the right to make it. But there are options, right? And so, for example, some of the beautiful practices that you're sharing, like, I loved, which is like, okay, meditation, maybe that's not your cup of tea to do meditation. Maybe you like to sing. You're like one of those people that likes to sing in the shower. Okay, cool. Do that. And, Jessica and I both know, and, we've been sharing a lot of these things on the podcast, that water is incredibly healing. So even if you just took a shower and you even just set the intention that says, I just want to rinse off anything that's feeling funky, anything that's just, I just don't need it right now. Please, beautiful water, just help to like just rinse it off of me.
Yeah.
And trust me, if you set that intention and you just allow it, it's truly helping you. It really, really is. And your body's going to thank you too and be like, oh, that actually felt really nice, because it's kind of coming back to kind of what we're talking about is the self care component, which a lot of us are not very good at. But it's a great time to say, a little bit of self care because you have a little bit of time right now. Not everybody. I know some of you might be busy with 10 days with family, which, hey, if that's your situation, I hope you're having an amazing time, but we also know that that also comes with its sets of stressors. So even in that, if you can find 5 minutes for yourself, whether that's the shower, you want to sing, go outside in nature for 5 minutes. Just go outside and breathe and, you know, enjoy the trees, the birds, whatever's there. If you just have snow, enjoy the snow, whatever you have. Like, just take those couple of minutes. It doesn't have to be some big to do, just those couple of minutes every day. You don't even know the difference it'll make, not just for your physical, but your mental and emotional and spiritual body. And that's kind of what we're kind of talking about. It's just all of those things are connected. So it's just taking some time to prioritize yourself and do some self-care. And I know Jessica would agree with me. We're both very much into all of these beautiful essential oils. Like, there's so many things you can do with them. Also is, if you enjoy candles, light a candle, and if you're somebody that enjoys dancing, dance. There's so many things. If you're someone that likes to write, which I am not the best person to do this, I'm always in a work in progress with, I'm going to journal, I'm going to automatic write. If you're somebody that's good at that, do that for a little bit. And during this time, during the holidays, also, if something calls to you, if you feel like you want to do some volunteer work, that's always something beautiful, because sometimes just that act of doing something for someone else, believe it or not, brings you so much joy, right? Obviously the recipient, but then also you also get so much joy. So, and of course, like Jessica was sharing before, it's so okay if you're feeling that you can't talk to someone and you can't reach out to a friend, reach out to a counselor, a therapist, somebody. Like, it's just so important to take care of yourself, whatever that looks like. And I think that's such a key, important part of why I'm doing this episode today, and why Jessica's sharing this very personal, story from her life and what she's going through, because we really just want to offer anything from our personal experiences that could help anybody right now, so that you don't feel like your only option is something like what Twitch did, or what Robin Williams did, or many other people who are not celebrities, who are just everyday people. And that's kind of what we're sharing about. So anyways, I think I've said many, many things. I'm going to let Jessica jump in.
Oh no. I mean, everything you're sharing is just so beautiful. And it's funny, it's like I'm hearing you, it's like you're saying this and this and this. And I'm like, yep, that was my mental list as well. And it's funny, I didn't even mention meditation, which is I mean, definitely one of my go-tos. But I find like when you're especially, or at least for me anyway, when I'm a meditation instructor, for crying out loud.
Wow.
But
Amazing.
I like, but yeah, I don't, it's funny when you have like this bag of like spiritual tools, but when you're in the thick of your own, gunk and emotions and all that, it's like it in the moment, it doesn't always like pop in as an option. Like, and that's the other thing, that's what's amazing about your podcast and stuff, is like, even if people know and they kind of have the awareness, like sometimes when you're in the thick of it, like you can't see the forest through the trees, and you need like those gentle reminders, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, I can choose to do this. But it's funny, is meditation for me, there were several months where it was like the silence was deafening. Like, I couldn't go into that space because there was just so much there. I was almost scared to meditate. But yeah, now I'm just now getting back to where it's like, okay, I feel like, sitting down, quietly in meditation is beneficial. But I mean, meditation's always been beneficial, but like there was a time where I had to break up with it for a little bit, or I did more of like walking meditations and that sort of thing.
Yes.
But yeah, there's so much out there that you can do to support yourself, and um through whatever you're going, there's resources all over. Hi, Jackie. um to support. It's just like I said, I think that's why things like this podcast are so important, is because sometimes we need stuff to be in our face to see it through, the pain or the loneliness we're experiencing over the holidays or whatever it is you're going through. So it's like, thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, and see, this is why it's so beautiful. It's like, just so everyone knows, I mean, when I was doing this episode, I really had no like set agenda. I just told Jessica, I was like, please join me and we're just going to chat and go with the flow and really just share from our personal stories and exchange. And, obviously, we are part of this universe. There's things happening around us that are impactful, and sometimes they're beautiful opportunities for us to share this kind of information, because it just reminds us that even though this is supposed to be, as they say, the happiest time of the year, it's not always the happiest time of the year for many, many people. And so we need to be really careful that there is sort of like what the media presents to us of like what happy should look like and what's the truth. And sometimes because we're being shown that it's all happy, 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 you get even more isolated because you're like, well, I'm not feeling that way. So I'll just kind of hide and not say anything because I don't want to be that person that's not happy during the holidays, right? So I think we have to be so careful of what we see. And perfect example is, if you purely just watched Twitch's social media, all you would see is the most joyful, happy, abundant, fulfilled, couldn't need anything more in his life. And yet, this is what happened, right? So, this is also a gentle reminder that, for us to just remind ourselves to not get attached to social media, because a lot of times all that we're seeing there are like the highlights, the best of. And the truth is, there's so much more that is not shown or shared. And that is why these types of conversations are important, to say, hey, don't forget, don't get caught up in all of that, because at the end of the day, there's so much more going on and you know it, right? And so it's to say you're never alone, but don't forget that you do need to just take those few moments for yourself every day. And definitely, like, please reach out if you ever feel like you just need to connect with someone. Reach out to a friend or a family member. And I'm taking this personally for myself too, to not be in any sort of pride about like, oh, I shouldn't bother anybody, or I shouldn't, if I'm feeling something, even if it's 5 minutes and all you did was get on the phone and just listen to each other for a few minutes, believe me, that alone, like what it does for you is so huge that it's so worth it, and it's just a few minutes. And just, it's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to take care of yourself. And it's really important for self-care, especially during the holidays. So, that's such an important thing. And I just want to thank Jessica so much for joining me for this beautiful, beautiful session today, and for sharing your personal journey, your personal family loss and how you've navigated and the different things that you're doing. And as you and I both know, this is like a continual journey. So it's not like a one and done, right? And so we are also constantly learning, and we need the reminders, right? And like you said, it's okay sometimes because you also don't want to keep doing the same things, right? That is why there's so many practices. It's like, today you might feel like you want to do a little dance, or tomorrow you might want to be like, yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of meditation tomorrow, or, so mix it up and have fun with it. It doesn't need to be a big serious thing. And we do know that there are serious things that people are dealing with, but we're also saying that so much about this is the energy around everything. And it's about elevating your frequency so that you can be in a place where you feel better about yourself and your situation, because that's the whole point of it, to not get stuck and to stay in that dense energy of just one emotion, like sitting in sadness for like 20 days. I understand if that's what you need to do, but at some point you have to make a choice of, I'm going to do something to like lift myself up, whatever that looks like. And a minute a day, 2 minutes a day, just start small. You don't have to do some big thing, just start with small practices. And so that is something that I hope is going to resonate with a lot of people who are tuning in for this episode. And I don't know if you have any last words that you wanted to share, Jessica, before we wrap up this session.
Oh my goodness. No, I think I've said more than enough. Actually, one of the poems that I wrote is, constellations in my mind, because I'm just like, I feel like my brain is everywhere. So,
Oh, oh,
no, you wrapped it up beautifully. It's absolute perfection.
I
And
love it. Oh,
yeah,
beautiful. Well, I do want to say this was not my typical podcast show where I get to like share all the beauty of my guests. Obviously, Jessica is an incredible, incredible human being. And, a little bit of, she's kind of shared little tidbits about all her gifts and talents during this show, but maybe I'll convince her to add some information so I can add it in the bio section of all the things that she does. And she does many, many things. And she's incredibly, incredibly gifted and also very humble. So I will make a point to get some information from her so you all can get to know her a little bit more when this does get posted everywhere that it does. And I did want to share, I did also launch on YouTube very recently. So that is now available, and that information will be in the bio. And I did want to just put this out there. I know it's very challenging with like Apple Podcasts and Spotify to leave comments. People are not really able to do that. I mean, they make it super challenging for people to even like leave a review. Most people don't because they're not able to figure it out or it's too complicated. But I did want to say that you will find in the bio section, I do have Instagram. I am, like I said, on YouTube. If anybody feels like they want to reach out or they want to connect, please feel free to like leave a comment in any of those other channels, and I'd be happy to hear from you. And just wanted to offer that up as an option. I'm so excited to hear from anybody that's listening from wherever you are. And if there's any story that you want to share or any tip that you have that could be beneficial to somebody else. The whole point of this podcast is really to support each other and to elevate everyone in the process. Like, let's all do this together and share and really support each other in our journeys. So with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. My beautiful guest, Jessica, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so blessed and honored to know you and to call you a friend, and for all of your love and support. And I hope that you do have a beautiful holiday season, and to everybody that's listening to also have a beautiful holiday season. And don't forget to take some time to love on yourself.
thank you so much.
Until the next time, everybody, catch you on the next episode, and happy holidays.